Melody Harman didn't move to Utah just for the mountains. After grief, loss, and the need for a fresh start, she found something powerful on the trails: healing, courage, and a new way forward. Welcome to The Human Adventure. This is a podcast about people, their journeys, their challenges, and the adventures that shape who they become. Here we explore the moments that test us, the risks that move us forward, and the stories that remind us what it means to be human. Because it's not about the destination, it's about the human adventure. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Jake Bushman. Before we jump into my conversation with Melody Harman, be sure to subscribe or follow The Human Adventure wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're enjoying the show, it would mean a lot if you'd leave a rating or review, like the episode, and share it with someone who might connect with Melody's story. You can also follow along on Instagram at Human Adventure Pod for clips, guest highlights, and more from the show. And if you enjoy this conversation, go back, check out episode 66 with Haley Subert, explorations and life lessons from the Grand Canyon to Colorado's peaks. It's another great adventure-driven story. All right, let's get to my conversation with Melody Harman. So I'm excited because I've got Melody Harman joining me on the show. Melody, welcome to The Human Adventure.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, this is fun to have you here. You're another local Utahn. I guess that's how we say it. We're Utahns, I guess.
Yeah,
I've only been here.
I've been here almost 2 years, so I can call myself.
Almost 2 years now. All right. So there you go. So the first thing I'm going to ask you about, because we're going to talk, adventure hiking, things like that, but we're also going to dive into your story. Since I'm Utah County, you live in Utah County. For me, I've only been here 5 years. I haven't got out and hiked much at all. Where should I go? I got a Saturday morning. Where's a good hike for me to go on here locally in Utah?
So I have a reputation of always suggesting these really big hikes, and people go on them and they're like, Melody, why would you say that to me? So
Tone it down.
it just depends on what you like. I love waterfalls, so I think Bell's Canyon Waterfall in Salt Lake County is like chef's kiss right now. I just went a week before I went to Peru, so it was like the last hike I did. It's really flowing right now. I love anything technical. If you really want to do something, I just did Mount Olympus. That's a challenge. So I like to do a few of those. But my go-to is actually Battle Creek Falls and Grove Creek, right up in
Battle Creek Falls in
Yes.
Pleasant Grove. Okay, very nice. Battle
like
Creek Falls.
1 mile gets you to a waterfall, and then you can come back down. Little workout.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, a little something. Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to tackle Timpanogos or Olympus or anything like that, but
it's rough.
we'll stick with something. Yeah, like quick little see a waterfall and come back. I love it. I love the fact that you enjoy hiking. In fact, that's how I found you. The Instagram algorithm, I think, drew me to. I'm like, who's this? Because I look at adventurous people, and you're someone who's adventurous. But I think the thing I love is your backstory a little bit. So before we dive into some of these adventures and things, I want to know Melody growing up. Where was Melody from? How many brothers and sisters you got? That sort of thing. Kind of tell me about Melody as a kid.
Yeah. So I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. It's a northeast little pocket of Florida. So it's a little more country, I guess you would say. When people hear Jacksonville, they think big city, beaches, and everything else. That's just not where I'm from. I was probably 20 minutes from the beach. But Melody, as a kid, she was still a little adventurous, but being that I was the only girl of the family, I had a little more safety precautions. Dad and mom, they didn't really let me go do the things that my brothers were doing. I was raised around all boys. There was one girl, and she was kind of like a boy. She was a little mean. Big group of boys. That's what I was raised around. So either I was playing with my Barbies in my room as my solo time, or I was kind of outside with them in the bushes, hide and seek, doing whatever, until my mom told me to come back inside. That was back when the street lights would come on and there was no tracking devices.
Yeah, no, those days were great. I miss
Yes.
those days. So 2 brothers. Are you in the middle? You youngest? Where do you fall?
I'm the baby. So that's a question. So I have 2 brothers. One passed when I was 13. He was only 20 years old. So now I have one brother, and he's the oldest. He's 39, so he's pushing 40, which is weird because I'm still 22. So that's weird.
Right? Yeah. How does that work? But yeah, hey.
Yeah, my nephew's 15. I'm like, well, I don't know how that happened.
And I think life for you kind of looked like a lot of us. You kind of have like the goals and the plans of, hey, I'm just going to kind of get an education, do this. Is that path you kind of followed? You got an education, that sort of thing?
Yeah, my mom likes to tell a story. She used to rock me to sleep and say I was going to go to college. That was the biggest thing. That was the only goal I had. And so I think it was just ingrained in my body. I did community college, had to save a little bit of money, had a scholarship. So that was 100%. Then I transferred out to Florida State University. So stayed there for 2 years. That was Tallahassee. Came back, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually was pre-med at one point, and then I got into chemistry, hated it. Was like, I don't think this is what I want to do. So I ended up with a psychology degree and then realized that wasn't really my path either. So I guess I'm gonna free spirit go. Um, I went for my master's in 2015,
What was your master's in?
business administration with finance.
Wow. Okay. So you're kind of just business major, the whole business person.
Yes.
And I think that what we really want to get into, because I know there were some struggles. I think I saw on your timeline, was it 2018 to 2023? Or I can't remember. There's a certain timeline that you have as kind of your struggle period, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was going on there?
It really started in, I guess, 2017. So my dad got sick in October of 2017. That was a really rough period in my life. He was in the hospital at Mayo Clinic for 70 days. He died on January 1st, 2018. So really clean slate of 2018 all the way till a good 2023. I just think, my family kind of fell apart, that dynamic. My security blanket of my parents were gone. So it was just a very troublesome 5 years. And then it all corrected itself. Now it seems like it was never there.
If you don't mind, yeah, tell me a little bit about your dad. What was he like? What was kind of his personality? Because you said he was like a security blanket for you. Yeah, tell me about him.
Yeah.
What was he like?
He was an amazing dad. We were like twin flames. I like to say that. We fought a lot. He was the baby of the family. Butted heads. Drove my mom crazy, of course, but he is like I am now. So before, I was very reserved. I would not share my story. I probably hid a lot of things because I was like ashamed of them, but my dad was the complete opposite. He couldn't meet a stranger. Like if you met him at a gas, even you, he would want to know your life story, and he'd probably find out a way he knew you somehow. He could fill the conversation. He could fill the room with conversation with ease. That was the biggest thing. Family was his pride and joy. I was his pride and joy. He bragged about me so much. And back then I was probably a little annoyed by it because I'm like, why does the Toyota dealership know who I am? And then I graduated with an MBA. And now looking back, I'm like, that was actually a very beautiful thing. He was just very proud of me.
I love that, and I love the fact that you have those memories of your dad. And I think if I'm not mistaken, you bought a house. And the idea is, okay, I bought a house in Florida, where you're from, thinking, hey, parents are here, everything's, and then it just kind of like you said, fell apart. Your dad passes away. The family dynamics different. What happened? Because you ended up in Utah, and I don't think you knew anybody in Utah, but you
Yeah,
ended up in Utah.
I'll get
So
into that
yeah,
one person.
yeah. Okay, one person. All right, yeah. So tell me the story here. I'm just so curious of how this all came about.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because 2016, I graduated with my master's. I moved out to Fernandina, into like a townhome on the beach, stayed there for a little bit. And I just had like this strong intuition that I needed to be back near my parents. So when I was looking, I was either going to get my own apartment, or they actually encouraged me to buy a house and help me with the down payment. So that was like a really big thing for me. So I decided to build a house. I kept coming back to this little neighborhood that was getting built. It was on Avery Park Lane. And so again, like I just kind of follow where my heart is leading me, where I feel a lot more calm. So that's where I got to Avery Park, started building the house. It's weird because in 2017, it was very delayed. They couldn't pull titles. And then all of a sudden, everything started going when my dad got sick, like the day of. And it was just a really weird thing. So there was that. How I got to Utah, that's a long story. I don't even know why I chose Utah, to be honest. The easy answer is access to nature. You look out the door and there it is. Like there's mountains. I can go paddleboarding.
Yeah,
I could summit a mountain the next. I could go down to the desert. I
yeah.
think a lot of people from Florida, they're like, what's in Utah? Is there a Starbucks? Is there coffee? It's actually a city.
Do you feel like, with everything that was going on, do you feel like you just needed a change? Do you feel like, maybe I just need to leave this behind? What was the thought process there?
I think the bigger picture was everything reminded me of what I lost. And it probably goes a lot deeper than that. But, everywhere I turned, if I went to the grocery store, if I went to like the Dairy Queen that me and my dad went to, I was looking for his truck. I wanted to to be the same. Everybody was so proud of me for having that house. But for me, it just reminded me of everything that I went through and then I lost. And it was just making me sad. It was keeping that depression alive. So I knew I needed a change and I needed a significant change. Nobody really understood it because, nobody's left in my family. They're all there. They've probably been married 20 plus years. They've lived on the same property 40 plus years. And so here I am, just a butterfly. I'm going
The
to Utah.
outlier. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Always have been.
I read somewhere too, I think one of your posts, that you were kind of involved in taking your dad off life support. That had to be just, I can't even imagine that, but how was that? And what was going through your mind and what were you thinking? I mean, how did that feel? That's got to be just intense.
Yeah, it's the first thing I've really admitted on social media that I've done that. I've kind of kept it to myself. So it was about 2 days before it happened. My mom sat us down, me and my brother, and she said, this is basically the end of the line. There's nothing else they could do for him. It was 70 days. He went through surgery. We did the ECMO machine, like everything you would see on a show like Grey's Anatomy that really is life-saving measures. We tried it all, and he just wasn't going to have the quality of life that we know that he would have loved. So she sat us down, and that was the question. And I remember saying back to them was, if this has to happen tomorrow or the next day, are we prepared to stick with our decision? Because it was all unanimous. That was what we wanted. And then it did happen 2 days later. Walked in. That was it. That was the end of it. It's a mixture of a lot more relief than anything because he was so full of life, and then he got so weak and you couldn't recognize him. He wasn't out of bed. He wanted to go. Well, he couldn't talk or anything like that, but he would make some motions. And then there was a point there he went out of ICU. Like, we thought he was gonna beat this, but then all of a sudden he didn't.
And forgive me if you already said this. Maybe you did, and I just don't remember. What is it that was it cancer? What was it that he had?
It was pancreatitis.
Pancreatitis.
It's just curable in about 99.9% of people. He had a acute pancreatitis, so it was just a severe case. The Mayo Clinic doctors were like, I've never seen a case this severe.
Wow. Okay. So something that's, like you said, 99% of the people can survive from it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case for your dad.
Yeah. And I think I said in that post was he either ignored the signs or it just came on too fast. But at the end of the day, I think when it's your time to go, it's nothing's going to stop the timeline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other thing you kind of, we brushed over it, but 13 years old, your brother passes away.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had grief had to be pretty strong. When you were struggling, from 2017 to 2023 or whenever it was, would that kind of creep in too? I mean, I don't know, how does that work?
It's a weird grief. So it's been over 20 years. I've stopped counting, which sounds really bad, but I guess when you lose somebody that young, now I guess 23 years. It was significant. That was a very tragic loss. It was instant. It was a motorcycle accident. He was on his way home from his girlfriend's house, and then he just lost control of his motorcycle and he died. That was, I say it's different because, we went back to school after 3 days. My mom went back to work after 3 days. We didn't talk about it. And, we all carried the grief in a different way. I was very young, very formational years. So a lot of the way I learned to think and the way I move through life it kind of comes back to that and how I handled it. So when my dad died, my nephew was 6 years old. He was the only one that was alive during that time period. I made sure that he could talk about it. Like, he had a space where he could talk about his Papa T, because I knew that how it affected me so hard when that happened to me.
Papa T, is that what you called your dad? Or is that what they called him?
He was Papa T.
Papa T. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah. So you were going through it. You decided to move to Utah, which, Utah's great. I've only been here 5 years, but like you said, I love walking out the door and it's like, oh, there's a mountain there. It's beautiful. Every day I can if I need a minute, I just walk outside and be good. Hiking, adventure, that sort of thing. It doesn't sound like you were that into it when you were a kid.
No.
Was it just, did that change over time to where you're like, I got to get to somewhere where I can do this?
I think so. I've actually researched this a little bit. I think with trauma and endurance sports and getting outside, there's it's related to each other. So maybe that's where it comes from. Because to be honest, I don't know. It started maybe in 2020. I remember going on my first hike in North Carolina to a waterfall. No blister prevention, no good socks. It was my shoes that did not have grip to them. I had a backpack that rubbed me raw. I knew nothing. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like this. And I kind of just built into it. And before I know it, here I am in Hawaii backpacking or Havasu Falls or stuff like that. So it just kind of grabbed onto me. I think that's what nature does to a lot of people.
Yeah. And I talk to a lot of endurance athletes, hikers. They all seem to, for whatever reason, nature to them is a healing process in
Yeah.
a way for a lot of them. Do you find that yourself? Like, what is it when you get outside? What does it do for you?
It calms me down. It like resets my nervous system a little bit. I think a lot of people are overstimulated with noise, so they're always constantly having like a TV on, or they're on their phone, or they have their headphones. With hiking, I don't have my headphones in, or I'm just walking around. I'm listening to the birds. I'm looking at the waterfalls. I'm in my own little moment, and it just gives me time to reset and take a step back.
Yeah, that move. Let's go back to this move. Utah, you decided Utah, and is there other places where, Colorado? I mean, there's some other beautiful places in the States. What was it? I mean, Utah, you kind of said why, but how did you end up in Utah? Who did you know? And give me that spiel if you don't mind.
I tried to go to Colorado. It was
Mhm.
2021. So my friend flew out there with me. She was very supportive. We looked at apartments. I was almost there. And then she started asking the hard questions, like, did you look at taxes and all this stuff? And I'm like, shoot. But I was still at a tough period in my life where it was more running away than it ever was. I ended up coming back. I reconnected with like a high school friend. It was really like a snowball effect. I reconnected with a high school friend. We went out to Utah, had like this really great week-long trip where I hadn't talked to her in 15 years, and then we reconnected and flew to Utah, and just we've been friends ever since. There was that piece, and then I guess it was always meant to be Utah now that I think about it, because then in 2023, I got Angel's Landing permits. I did not tell the friend that I was talking about in the previous, but she made it work. I called her one day and I said, hey, I secured Angel's Landing permits in Zion. Would you like to go defy death with me on a Wednesday? And she bought her flight. We went out there. We got to the top. I ended up meeting the one person that I know in Utah now, or I know a lot of people now, but when I moved, he was the only one I knew. But I overheard him. He was on a trip with his parents. I overheard him talking about how he moved away from his family. He has nephews. It was really hard. Like, it was all the questions that I had in my head, and they were just being answered by some random stranger. And then we've actually stayed connected. We're friends. We go to yoga every once in a while. Like, I see him and I'm like, yeah, you're my friend now.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it's
Interesting.
the universe. It all works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Go on your path as you go. And I look back at that moment. I was like, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that it can happen, that you can move away from your family.
Was there anything besides, you had your family, were you in any kind of relationship or anything like that? Did you have a boyfriend or anything like that at all, or no?
No, I dated somebody when I was 29. Thought he was probably going to be the one, and then he like broke my heart. And so I wasn't dating anybody when I left. When I was starting to think about moving, I made sure that I didn't connect with anybody because I knew I was leaving. There was no point. So I kind of started detaching myself from a lot of the things I was doing, a lot of people I knew. I didn't want to start anything new with anybody because I knew, even though nobody else knew, but I was moving away.
Packing up your stuff, going across the country to Utah from Florida. That's a pretty big trek. But I know that wasn't something totally new. I think you drove your grandma to Colorado when you were 15. I think I saw that on one of your posts. So was it mostly excitement to do this, or was there some fear built into this?
I don't think I felt fear at all. The beauty of that story, it was the summer of 2005, so I was 15. And my grandma, she had a son out in Colorado Springs specifically. And she would always go out there. She would either fly or she would drive. She was just getting too old to do it on her own. So I don't know what conversation happened between my mom and my grandma, but the idea came that Melody could drive her, even though she has a learner's permit.
15. I was going to say, at 15 with a learner's permit. That's wild.
I tell people that, and they're like, did you take driver's ed in high school? I'm like, no, I drove to Colorado and I got all my hours. I think the beauty of that story, though, is it was a year and a half after my mom lost her firstborn son. It's one of those things. She had every right to hold me back from doing something so brave and independent, and they didn't. And so I love to tell that piece of the story that kind of gets lost. Like, everybody's like, wow, you're 15 and you drove to Colorado. And I don't mean like I was a passenger. I drove.
You drove.
The mountains and maybe Atlanta, but I remember through like St. Louis, Missouri in this traffic. And my grandma's minivan, and she wouldn't let me go over 70. So that was always a fun little trek.
You bring up such a good point, though. That was only, your brother had just passed away not too long ago. That's a, you know, your mom could have been like, no way, I'm not letting her, this is dangerous and there's no way. But she allowed you to do that. And I think that's, you know, you still think about that to this day. You still think about that trip, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure you still have
Yeah.
memories and things and just the thought of that. So I appreciate you sharing that because I think that's important.
Yeah.
So now you made it to Utah. Any regrets? I mean, you've been here 2 years?
Yep. In August will be 2 years. I have had a single regret. Like, I think that's how I know was always supposed to be my story or my path. I haven't felt homesickness. I haven't been sad. I haven't thought about my old home on Avery Park. It's difficult leaving behind my niece and my nephews because I am super close to them and they had me for, you know, a good 6, 7 years of their life, the little babies, where I was there twice a week and I was taking them on places. And so that was like the biggest piece that was at the top of my list. Like, should I do this? But then I always thought they deserve a happy version of me. And I just was not the happiest version of me living in Jacksonville. I felt stuck. I didn't want to be there. And so I just think that they needed that influence. And so now I'm the cool aunt that travels all over the world and brings them back things.
Have they had a chance to come visit you yet in
The
Utah?
oldest has. The niece actually just told me that she would like to come visit me in Utah. Actually, she said she would like to live with me. I said, "We can do that." She can come visit. I would love to bring them out here and let them do the 5 parks and all the fun stuff
Yeah.
next summer when I get back on my feet.
Nice. What about your mom? Has she been out here to Utah to see you?
Yeah, she's come twice. She actually hates flying, so I think that's a lovely thing that she is brave enough to come out here and fly and do all that. So she'll fly out here and then she goes to Las Vegas after that. She likes to gamble and does blackjack and stuff. And then she went down to Phoenix this last time and then flew back. So she loves it out here. They actually bought a camper. So when she retires next year, she wants to be a little bit closer to me. So she's kind of going to make her way out this way and we'll see where her life goes as well.
I love it. That's great. I'm glad you get to have her close by as well. The one great thing, you know, we kind of touched on this with Utah is, like you said, we're close to mountains, desert, all kinds of different hikes, trails, you know, the 5 parks, national parks here in Utah. You already talked about Angel's Landing. Tell me a little bit about Angel's Landing because I've seen the pictures. You know, it's kind of iconic when you think of Zion. It's Angel's Landing, Zion kind of go hand in hand, but you do have to get permits. I mean, it's hard to get. I mean, it's not something easy to get.
Yeah.
Besides that moment at the top, tell me about Angel's
I've
Landing.
actually summited it 3 times now, which sounds great.
Wow.
Because everybody's like, that's an iconic hike. That's dangerous. It is a dangerous hike. I won't like to minimize it in any way because especially someone did just lose their life on that particular hike, probably a week after I did it in April with a couple friends. I'm not afraid of heights in the slightest. I joke with my mom now that I could use just an ounce of like being afraid of heights. So it's a little different for me. I was pretty scared the first time I did it. Second time I did it in the July heat. I do not suggest going in July. It is 105 degrees. The chains are hot. And then I just did it in April. And it's just an accomplishment when you get up there. You're standing at pretty much the top of Utah, I feel like. And you're on this narrow path where the biggest obstacle you have with Angel's Landing is actually the people going up and down it with you because everybody's in their own zone. They're trying to protect themselves. And so that's the biggest, most dangerous piece of summiting Angel's Landing, in my opinion.
How long does it take to do Angel's Landing?
I think
And I know it can vary, but
I would say around 2 to 3 hours. I honestly think the worst part of Angel's Landing is getting to Scouts Lookout because there's about 21 switchbacks that you have to get up to even get there. So by the time you get to that piece, you're exhausted. So you take a little snack break, you play with the chipmunks, and then you go summit, and it's a mile up there to the.
Okay, so 2 to 3 hours. And like I said, the pictures and stuff I've seen, you mentioned chains. Like that's what you see those pictures of, holding onto these chains. And yeah, I would imagine in 100-degree weather, it's probably not fun to do.
I think a lot of people think there's chains all the way up, and there's not.
Yeah,
so
there's not.
sections
Okay.
of that where you're literally on the edge and you're pretty far up, and there's actually not a chain to hold on to. So a lot of people go into it thinking, I just have chains to pull up on. It's not like that the entire way. So they get a little surprised.
Little shock factor comes into play. The other hike I want to talk to you about because that you did was Havasu Falls, Grand Canyon, right? That's the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Is that the hike? Am I thinking the right? Okay. Yeah. Because I think my son did that. Both of my sons have done that hike. Pictures were amazing of just all the falls and the waterfalls and everything. But yeah, let's talk because you're down in and then back, you got to get yourself back out. So yeah, tell me about that and what'd you do and what'd you think of it?
What's funny is that was my first backpacking trip, and I had no idea how to backpack. I didn't know how to cook my own food. I didn't know what a jet boil was, sleeping bags, any of that. So I went to researching once I won the permits, and my friend that goes on a lot of the hikes, she actually just went to Peru with me. She said yes, and we just decided that we would learn how to camp and do all of these things. I think that hike is not horrible. It's 10 miles into the canyon. It gets hot. We did it in April, so it was a really good time. It's pretty hard on your knees going down because I think it's like 2 miles or something like that, getting down into the canyon, and then it's flat until camp. About mile 8, you're really feeling your 40-pound pack on your backpack, on your back. Maybe I should learn how to kind of minimize my weight on my backpack, but there's all the essentials. I need everything that I have. It's one of those things where you're probably like 0.1% of the population that will ever experience that. And so when you're down there, you just take it all in, and it's beautiful. You don't realize that an entire tribe is down there, and it's an entire village, and people live there. They're using the donkeys to come up and down, taking school supplies, medical supplies, life down there. And we're just there to visit. So it's a beautiful thing that they even let us live down there at all.
When you say you have those moments to take it all in, for you, what does that look like? Are you thinking about something? Are you just stopping for a minute? What kind of, when you're taking it all in, how does Melody take it all in?
I think it all comes back to my dad, to be honest, because he traveled, but he didn't travel to the extent that I do. So every time I'm in a place where I'm seeing Machu Picchu or I'm in the Grand Canyon, my thought goes back to, wow, you're.
Do you sometimes feel like he's there with you?
I feel like, and I say this pretty often, I feel like our souls merged. And that's pretty deep for a podcast, but we were twin flames, and I feel like our souls just merged. And maybe that's why I was able to combat this grief a lot different than when my brother died. I just feel like he walks with me consistently, and I became the best parts of him. So that person that could talk to anybody, the conversation, that's his personality. I just became that, and I carry him through me.
What do you got going on in your life now? Now that you've been in Utah a couple of years, I mean, you're always going to have that grief one way or another for both your brother or your dad, whoever passes on. But what does it look like for you now? Do you feel like you're getting back to happy Melody? What's going on?
I feel like it's evened out. Cross my fingers. I don't.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah.
I used to be naive and think that you get one big tragic event in your life and that's that. And that's unfortunately not what has happened in my life. But I think I've healed so much that I became silly again. I did lose that in those like 5 years that I was always sarcastic and witty. I was weird. I was silly. I was always goofing off, and I kind of lost that. And so it was like a really good feeling to understand, like, I'm around people that bring that back out. Like, my soul's relaxed again. I'm back to, I don't want to say normal, but it's better than it was.
That's good. And I'm glad you shared that, because you do seem happy in your posts, but we all know that social media it's fake. We don't really know what someone's going through. We always, we like to do our little selfies or whatever, and we're always smiling and everything. Oh, look where I'm at.
Yeah.
But it's not always like that. So even though you might be in some beautiful place, you could be struggling with something, and you could be, not happy go lucky as you want to be. So I'm glad to hear that you're being fun again, and you're being able to smile and laugh. And it shows from those pictures. So hopefully that keeps happening for you.
Yeah. My only struggle this year is, I touched on it on an Instagram post, but I did lose my corporate career in February. So I was actually in Peru unemployed. You would never know because it's social media. Like, oh, she's in Peru. She must have it all together. But in reality, I'm stressed. I'm counting money. I'm not traveling like I used to or how I like to. I still enjoyed the moment, but I would love to go back when I'm a little bit better and just like fill Peru all over it without counting pennies.
Sure. And I think some of the other things you've done, let's see, I think I read on one of your posts, like, I think one of your big first solo trips was to Paris, I think is what you did.
Yeah. So I started solo traveling in 2020 to Colorado. So very little things, but my first international solo trip was I flew into London. I took the train to Paris and then to Amsterdam. So I guess I'm just like a picture of like, yes, girls can go solo travel through Paris, even though movies like Taken are out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. What has solo traveling taught you? I mean, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy about it?
It it gets addicting. So solo travel just has taught me that I'm capable of anything, to be honest. I know a lot of people that they can't go to the store alone. They can't be outside of a relationship. They can't navigate. They can't book their own trips or anything like that. So I've always been independent, but solo travel really taught me a lot more of like what I can do. It's not easy navigating through international airports or train stations where it's all in French or Spanish and you know like a couple sentences. And so you just kind of teach yourself and you trust yourself a lot.
So with losing the corporate gig, because I know that, that's a tough thing. I think, COVID did that for me because I'm in the live events industry. I do trade shows, conventions. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden it's like, yep, nope, done, over. And I felt like my whole identity was, that's what I did. That's who I was. And so I struggled. That was kind of my low point for me, was dealing with that, not having a job. So for you, losing this corporate gig, something that you've been doing, part of you, what have you learned and what are you doing to overcome that? How, what kind of advice can you give to someone who may be struggling with that?
It was a giant kick to my ego because I always wanted to succeed. I always wanted to make my parents proud. So like education, career advancements, my title tied to my success. So when I didn't have that anymore, I was like, who am I? Does it all matter? And when it all happened, like I was praying or like thinking about like leaving for Tegra, it was draining to me. Corporate life in general, just I wasn't happy. It was still that last little tie to Jacksonville that I didn't want anymore. So in a way, like it's a blessing. It happened because it needed to happen. I do think that the universe kind of kicked me out into the middle of the street and just said, figure it out. If you're not going to listen to me, then I'm just going to make it happen. So, but again, I have like a positive outlook in life. So I was like, it's all going to work out. Don't think that I wasn't crying on my patio or anything like that, or just completely stressed. Like, what am I going to do next? But I learned, and I don't remember who told me this, but you don't have to know A, B, C, D. You just need to know how to get from A to B. And that's pretty much how you can get through anything in life.
Thank you. This is
So
one
if you
reason
ever
I love
need like
doing
a pick
this.
me up, just remember A to B.
A to B. Yeah, no, that's why I love doing this podcast, because I struggle with things all the time. And it's good for me to hear from people like you who are, because we're all going through things. Everyone's going through things. We can all learn some things. And so I appreciate that. Let's go back to more fun stuff. Let's talk about some more hiking and trips and things like that. When you look at all the hikes you've done, do you have a particular favorite and why? Tell me the story about it.
Oh, let's see. I think immediately my brain went to the backpacking trail on the Nepali coast in Hawaii. One, because I was in Hawaii. Two, because second time I was in Hawaii in the same year, and little girl me would be like, "What? You're in Hawaii for the second time?" I don't know if you've ever heard of Kalalau Trail. I don't know if I say that right, but I go with it. But it's pretty much it's a 22-mile trip, round trip along the Nepali coast on Kauai, and it's known for Crawler's Ledge. So you get to a point where there's probably like maybe a foot of space where you're kind of walking on the Pacific Coast, and one little step, there's no survival.
Wow.
So that's probably been my favorite.
22 miles. How many days was that for you?
We did it over 4 days. So it's the same as we did with Havasu. I think you can go up to like 14 days. It just depends on your permit. Don't quote me on that. Hawaii government like really regulates that. Um, but we didn't want to go too long back there, but we wanted enough time to really be able to enjoy it. But once you get back there, there's not a lot to do versus like Havasu, where Havasu you can go do all the other waterfalls. You can go to the confluence. You could do Mooney Falls, which is terrifying if you ever get to do Havasu. But once you get back on that beach, it's pretty much relaxation, which is it's still needed in its own aspect. I really like it.
100%. Yeah. And the backpacking, because I know, the first time you said you did the, Havasu Falls, and it was, you didn't know what you're doing as far as backpacking goes. Do you love backpacking, or do you prefer hikes without the pack? Like, what's kind of your go-to?
I approach it this way. I don't know that I love hiking or I love backpacking, but I love the places it gets me to, if that makes sense. Because, yeah, you can get back to that beach via boat or, you can hire a guide, but there's something about like getting there on foot. The same with Machu Picchu. You can actually take the train to that. You can do it the easy way, but I did it over 5 days. So I wanted to walk it and I refused to take the train. I didn't want to take the horse. As much as I was very tired and I had blisters and sores on my feet, I was like, I have to finish this or my brain's going to be like, you didn't do that trick and you have to redo it.
Yeah, is it a mental thing? Is it like you just in your mind you're like, I have to do it this way or it's not done
Yeah, I was
correctly?
very close to taking the train from, I think it's Aguas Calientes or whatever town it is to get to like the Machu Picchu town. I almost took the train and I was like, I can't do it because I'm going to think that I didn't do that entire trek by foot the way it was intended. But that's just my brain.
No, exactly. And everyone's different. And hey, if for some people the adventure is taking the train or whatever, so you never know. That's what's fun too about this. I get all kinds of different adventures, different things that people do. All right, on the other note, great one in Hawaii that you enjoyed. Any hike in particular you're like, I don't need to do this one again, or there's something that happened, or any, ones that you're like,
Mount Olympus, to be honest. Well, such a terrible hike. It is brutal. It's what, 4,200 vert gain in like 3.5 miles. So just imagine that. Like the mile and a half getting up to the scramble is straight boulders. And I'm short. So it's a lot for me to like get up these giant boulders and it's just so exhausting. But once you get up there, and also once you get up there, it's not like a ridge line like Timpanogos. It's just rocks. I don't know how I got up. You can't really just relax. That's one I won't do again. I did it. I won't do
and
it.
and Olympus, what is it, 9,000 something, or is it 10? I don't even know how tall
I think it's
Olympus
just under
is.
10,000.
Just under 10. Okay, yeah, that's pretty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen, and Timpanogos is here in Utah County where I'm from, but the pictures there, yeah, it seemed like the peak, the summit there just seems like, oh, like you said, a ridge
Jagged
line.
rock.
Yeah, exactly. So okay,
And it's funny
that
because
makes
the
sense.
friend that I met in Angel's Landing hiked that with me, but he's a little more extreme. So he did the West Slab, just straight up climb and met me at the top. I guess it's just our thing is we meet each other at the top of peaks.
How long did it take you to get up Olympus? What kind of time frame did that take?
Think I got to the saddle in 3 hours. I took my time. Total round trip, I did about 7.5 hours, which I think is a good time for everybody that commented on my story, at least. Yeah.
Perfect. That works. We'll take it. What does the future look like? You've been in Utah a couple of years. Do you think so far Utah's home? But I mean, and who knows? You lost your corporate gig, so who knows? But what do you want the future to hold? And do you have any future hikes or travels or anything planned?
Yeah, my biggest goal this year, and it probably tied back into me losing my corporate career, was I wanted to sit still in Utah. Like I traveled so much when I got here. I was barely in Utah. So that's my goal this time. And I'm doing a pretty good job. I've only done Peru as a trip, but it's summiting a lot of peaks. I want to do like Mount Nebo. I want to redo Mount Timpanogos from Aspen Grove side. There's a couple other peaks I would love to like onto my do. I think Utah is home for a while. I actually did accept a job offer, so I start next week. So this is my last week of summer break, just what I call it. It all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Good. Congrats. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Let's take a look at you now. Here you are, however many years old. 22, like you said earlier, right? You're 22 years old. But let's go back to that, the 13-year-old you, your brother just passes away unexpectedly. And knowing what you know now, what would you tell that 13-year-old self?
I guess I would say, it all works out. The simplest of things is, 13-year-old me was filled with anxiety. Like, I'm just not the same person at all. And I think this solo travel really took that out of me. I had imposter syndrome, anxiety. I had shame and guilt over things that I did that they didn't really matter in the big scheme of things. So, I mean, I would love to sit down with like previous versions of me, especially like 26-year-old me or 27-year-old me, that I remember the words out of my mouth where I don't want to live a life where my dad does not exist. And now I can't imagine not living life because I have such a full life now because I've persevered through the hardest times of my life.
If someone else is kind of dealing with something like that, because it sounds like the grief you dealt with was really intense to the point, like you said, if you're saying to yourself, I don't want to live in a world where my dad's not, that's pretty intense. That's not something to be taken lightly. What would you say to someone who's kind of maybe struggling with their own grief? What kind of advice would you give them? Or maybe there's not advice. Maybe it's just something you can say. I don't know.
I have a saying I always go back to, and it's if you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day. Like if you could just make it through that night, because There was a point in my life where that's all I could do is to convince myself to get out of bed and like go another day. I never felt depression in my life, even when I was 13 and I lost my brother. I think because it just moved so fast and I didn't have a chance to process it. But I fell into like deep depression when my dad passed. And so I moved through that on my own. I don't know how. I think I had therapy background. I never went to therapy myself, but I did the work internally. I journaled. I found something that like I think that's why I traveled is I needed to find something that would make me look forward to another day. And so that's always my quote is if you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day.
Well, I think you're being a great influence and example to others. I'm so glad I was able to talk to you because I know it's got me excited, for life and just for, hey, I'm in Utah. I got all these cool places I can go hike and do these
Yeah.
things as well. So I'm looking forward to that. If people want to follow your journey, where can they find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, it's melody.onthemove because I am on the move all the time. So that's across all platforms. I'm actually on Facebook, TikTok, it's in Instagram, all on the same handle.
Melody.onthemove. I love it. That's fantastic. My final question to you, when you think about the word adventure, what does the word adventure mean to you?
Just getting outside, whether you're scared or you don't know what you're doing. There's no perfect way to get outside. There's no perfect way to even be adventurous. I don't even think of myself as adventurous sometimes until somebody has suggested a hike and they're like, I combed through your Instagram and I think you would really like this 4-mile hike straight uphill. And I'm like, I need to redo my Instagram.
I love it. This was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on The Human Adventure.
Thank you for inviting me.
Huge thank you to Melody Harman for joining me on the show and for being so open with her story. I love this conversation because Melody reminds us that adventure, it's not always about chasing the biggest summit or the farthest destination. Sometimes adventure looks like starting over, stepping into grief, finding your footing again, and discovering healing one trail at a time. Be sure to follow Melody on Instagram at melody.onthemove. Keep up with her hikes, travels, and other adventures. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I'm truly grateful for every guest who trusts me with their story and for each of you who continue to show up, listen, share, and support this show. It means more than you know. Next week, I'm excited to share my conversation with Christy Halverson as we talk about following those little tickles of the soul and where they can lead when we're brave enough to listen. Until next time, just remember, it's not always about the destination, as it is about the human adventure. Take care, everybody.